This is likely not the 49ers update that you were hoping to hear this morning. We don't have the most ideal update for you in regards to the 49ers search for their defensive coordinator. And of course, it involves Robert Saleh. And we will talk about why that is and what is developing right now this morning. So we'll get into all that. Also, an unexpected player, I think, has entered the mix as a potential offseason contract extension candidate. We'll talk about who that is and get your thoughts on if you think the 49ers should pay or do something else. So we're going to talk about that all coming up on this morning's show. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a SDS in the comments. Smash that like button. Let's get to our 100 like goal today. And let's talk about it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. The San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator search kind of feels like it's in a strong holding pattern, and not an ideal update today with what we heard coming out of Florida, because while we did receive some optimism yesterday, we had heard from a Tampa Bay Bucks insider that the Bucks were internally preparing for their offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, to be offered the head coaching job for the Jaguars. He was scheduled to have his second meeting today with ownership, but he did not make it to that meeting, and here is why. He didn't make that meeting because he said, "Nah, I'm good." He told Trent Baalke, "I'm going to stay here with the Tampa Bay Bucks." The Bucks said, "We'll make it worth your while." And the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to make Liam Cohen one of the highest paid coordinators in the league. So this is an unfortunate situation for the San Francisco 49ers. Why? Because the guy who was expected to get the head coaching job, or at least to be one of the top candidates for that job, the favorite to land it, is staying in Tampa Bay. So when it comes to looking at the remaining interviews, so basically the Jaguars are running another trial run of second interviews. Only 3 coaches got the invite back for the second interview. It was, of course, Robert Saleh being one of them, Cohen and Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator from the Raiders. Now there's only 2 that remains, and they're both defensive coordinators. So going to be fascinating to see how this works out. I did see some reports coming out that Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Bills, I believe, has kind of entered the mix as a potential head coaching candidate. So, I don't know what we're gonna get from this situation. I don't know what it's going to look like in the end, but it does kind of feel like Robert Saleh, it's still up in the air. We don't know what the ultimate decision is going to be, but we have heard from Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report, who is reporting that Robert Saleh is believed to be the top candidate now, the favorite to land the head coaching job for the Jags. So if you're a 49er fan, probably not the update that you were looking for, especially after it seems like some of the news that we got yesterday that seemingly had us trending in the right direction. Because it does not sound like The Cowboys are going to be going with Robert Saleh, and it doesn't sound like the Raiders are going to be going with Robert Saleh. So it felt like it was a one horse race between the Jags, and that's it for Saleh to get the head coaching job. So it doesn't appear. I don't know. It's not looking good. So not the ideal situation that I think the 49ers were hoping to have happen. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. I did see an interesting tweet from Tim Kawakami, and I will share that with you. He says, what's reported isn't everything that's going on. Sometimes there are smarter things happening behind the scenes. Sometimes there are dumber things happening. I will wait and see which one is happening here, but I'm sure most of you will just be mad. So I don't know if he's alluding to the fact that there might be some other things happening behind the scenes, maybe, but I don't know. I see. I don't understand the protocol for coaching interviews. From everything that I've seen, it seems like those have to be announced. They have to be reported on. I don't know if you can have secret um, interviews. I don't know if that exists. Because if it did exist, I would 100% believe that the 49ers would totally be doing secret interviews. I've always talked about it when it comes to the 49ers transparency. There is definitely a level of transparency for sure that the 49ers provide, but in regards to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, they also operate this like they don't want people to know what they're cooking up, which I don't mind because that's exactly how I would do it. If I had moves that I wanted to be made or we're working on behind the scenes, I wouldn't let that be public knowledge. So on that particular aspect, I understand that, but I don't know if they can do like secret interviews. Like I don't know if that is a thing that exists because based on everything that we're seeing, everything gets reported. So it feels like that has to be knowledge that is shared. I don't know. Um, but just based on following the trends is that it appears you have to announce who you're interviewing. But again, I don't know what's going to happen. And I think the 49ers fan base is fearful that if Robert Saleh does not get the job, that it will be Brandon Staley, because obviously Brandon Staley was in the building. He had a year to kind of sit back and watch things. And the 49ers have only interviewed three defensive potential defensive coordinators in Saleh, Brandon Staley, and as well Townsend from the Detroit Lions, their secondaries coach. So not a lot of options. And I think a lot of fans have kind of gotten frustrated by only seeing 3 interviews being had, one of them being someone who is currently on the staff, another one being a retread as a former DC that was with the team, and only one outside hire that meets the Rooney rule. So I think fans are kind of off put by the fact that it doesn't feel like the 49ers are exhausting all options just to get an idea of who could potentially be there. And I think that has kind of pigeonholed the fan base into believing one of 2 outcomes. It's Saleh or bust. And if it's not Saleh, it's Brandon Staley. And if it's Brandon Staley, then 49er fans, as we know, aren't going to be happy about that. So, hey, we'll see what happens in that regard. I'm not really sure what is going to happen, but we have to wait until it sounds like at least Friday. So, Robert Saleh will be meeting with Jags ownership on Friday, and We'll see. We will see. Niner Faithful says, Brad, do you think Staley can be better as a positional coach than head coach, similar to Schwartz, Kingsbury, Fangio? Um, I'm personally, I'm going to be honest. I don't hate Brandon Staley as much as this fan base. I talked about it, when he was being considered as the defensive coordinator. Um, I really don't. I really don't despise Brandon Staley as much, I would say, as the average fan. Um, I think Brandon Staley does have good qualities as a coach. I don't think it worked with everything and how it went down with the Chargers as a head coach. But I don't mind him as a coach. And I think, just the perception of Brandon Staley is a lot worse than I think who he actually is. So I'm going to be honest, like, I would obviously love to get Saleh. Saleh would definitely be my number one, or getting a guy like Schwartz, if possible, would be ideal. Um, but I also don't despise Brandon Staley like the rest of the fan base does. And I talked about that prior to him being hired. Um, it seemed like he fit in decently well um, with the locker room. But Tim Kawakami also says this. He says, "I don't think Staley would be 100% would be a 100% popular hire in the locker room. But maybe he's the best candidate left if Saleh gets hired in Jacksonville." So that's an interesting little nugget that Tim Kawakami provides by saying he doesn't think Staley would be a 100% popular hire in the locker room. So maybe indicating that not everyone on the defensive side of the football loves what Brandon Staley brings to the table. I don't know. Um, it seemed like the secondary guys were liking Staley when he first came in. But again, it's also, to me, hard to judge a coach from the outside looking in. I've talked about it many times. Like, as someone who's been in locker rooms before, playing college football, like, I can judge coaches when I can see the coaching. Like, I can see it day in and day out. You find out really quickly who's a really good coach and who's not a good coach. It's pretty easy to see. But it's really hard to determine on the outside looking in, because we don't have what are we judging off of? Like, I would say half this fan base doesn't even know the responsibilities that Brandon Staley holds. So how do you judge him? How do you I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see is going to be the main thing here for the next couple days. And the 49ers continue to be in a waiting period. Something else that popped up today, or actually kind of popped up yesterday, was with Colton McKivitz. I know we've talked a lot about contract extensions this offseason, and of course, Brock Purdy being at the top of that list. But we've also mentioned how George Kittle could absolutely be in the running for a new contract this year. And guys like Deebo Samuel, they don't have any money remaining, guaranteed money remaining on his contract. So he seems like a guy who could be um, up for a potential contract extension. And so also too, um, that brings in Colton McKivitz. So what alerted me to this was he signed with Range Sports. Range Sports reps Brock Purdy. And so he changed his representation. And typically players change representation right before they're about to enter a contract negotiation. So when you look at Colton McKivitz and you look at his deal, he, according to Spotrac, only has one more year left on his deal in 2025. So, being a guy who has been who has outperformed his deal, it will be fascinating to see what the 49ers ultimately do here. And is Colton McKivitz going to be a player that is in a conversation for a new contract this year? And I think based on understanding the trends of the league, considering he only has 1 year left on his deal and he has outperformed his contract, which is currently slated as a 2-year, $4.6 million deal, according to Spotrac. He seems like someone who absolutely could be warranted in asking for a new deal, regardless of the fan base perception of him. So that is going to be, I think, another interesting element of the offseason conversation that I don't think we've really been talking about, because you have Jalen Moore, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So Jalen Moore is going to be able to hit the open market. You have Aaron Banks, who's an unrestricted free agent. He is going to be able to hit the open market. And it sounds like Colton McKivitz would like to have a new deal. And it'll be fascinating to see if that actually happens, if that's something that comes out, that they are kind of in a contract negotiation with him. It'll be very, very interesting to see. So I don't know. What do the 49ers do? Do they extend Colton McKivitz? Do they, make him play out the final year of his deal and then let him hit free agency as an unrestricted free agent? I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens there, but I would not be surprised at all if Colton McKivitz is headed to the negotiation table to try to get a reworked deal. When you look at Colton McKivitz from a stat perspective, his first year as a starter, he gave up 9 sacks. Last year, he gave up 2 sacks. His first year as a starter, he gave up 44 quarterback hurries. Last year, he gave up 28 quarterback hurries. His first year as a starter, he gave up 59 pressures. Last year, he gave up 36 pressures. So he has improved not only from the metric standpoint, but he has improved on tape. It's something that I've talked about quite a bit. But I think it becomes interesting is, where do you put McKivitz when it comes to kind of being paid? Tony says McKivitz is the 24th highest paid right tackle. I think if you look at all tackles, I think he's outside the top 32 in highest paid. If you ask me, he's kind of paid like a swing tackle. So the fact that he has 2 years as a starter, he improved from his first year. I don't know. It's like I said, I'm just bringing it to attention as it could be something that is in the works. Not really positive if it will happen, but something to keep your eye on throughout this offseason. So, again, it's not just Brock Purdy contract negotiations that we're going to be talking about. There's other players also that are going to be either looking for a raise or looking for an extension. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But those are your quick little morning updates. Just wanted to get on here and talk about that. Appreciate everyone who's riding through and supporting the channel throughout the off season, and we'll keep on keeping on and bringing you as much content as we can. Make sure you got those post notifications on. Smash that like button if you can for me, and I'll probably be on live later today. So appreciate everyone for tapping in. I'm out for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see